Does size matter? This is the iPhone 16 Pro, this is the iPhone 16 Pro Max, and in today's video, I'm going to help you decide, should you go for the bigger iPhone or for the smaller one? If you are excited, drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel, let's get started. If you know me, you know that I'm an iPhone 16 Pro Max user, and in the last few years, I've bought always the Pro Max phone, from the iPhone 13 Pro Max to the iPhone 14 Pro Max, 15 Pro Max, and now the iPhone 16 Pro Max. And in the last month, I've been loving it. I have no complaints about the size of this phone. I'm completely used to it, and I love the bigger display and the bigger battery. But the iPhone 16 Pro, I've gained access to it, and it's super compelling. This is a very, very compact iPhone, really small, really easy to use, and for the first time in a while, this year, there's no differences between the iPhone 16 Pro camera and the iPhone 16 Pro Max. So you can choose the iPhone depending on the size and not on the specs. But there are a few differences you should be aware of. For starters, the iPhone 16 Pro Max base price is $1,200, while the iPhone 16 Pro is $999. $200 of difference on the base models. Why? Well, pretty simple. The iPhone 16 Pro Max starts at 256 GB of storage, while the iPhone 16 Pro has 128. This difference is significant. So if you buy the base model iPhone 16 Pro Max, you are obligated to buy the 256 GB of model, because there's no 128. While with the iPhone 16 Pro, there's a choice to go for the even lower base model 128. This will save you $100. If you want to spec match these two phones, the differences will always be $100. So at the end of the day, the real difference between these two phones is $100. If you want a lower spec version than the iPhone 16 Pro, there's the 128 GB model. But I would say that nowadays, with all the specs and all of the codecs that you have available with the iPhone 16 Pro, you should buy the 256. So consider the base model iPhone 16 Pro to be $1099. I do believe that at $999 price tag, Apple is trying to sell you the phone under $1,000, but 128 in 2025 is not enough. So buying one of these iPhones should be completely dependent on your taste. Do you want a bigger iPhone with a bigger display and a bigger battery? Do you want a smaller and more compact phone? And so let's compare the size of these two phones. The iPhone 16 Pro Max has a 6.9-inch display, while the iPhone 16 Pro has a 6.3. This seemingly might be a big difference, but whenever you hold it in your hands, you actually notice the difference in size. The iPhone 16 Pro has a 6.3-inch display, which is quite big. It's only 0.4 inches smaller than the iPhone 15 Pro Max. But in terms of comparison to the iPhone 16 Pro Max, in terms of size, it's much more compact and smaller. This has some benefits and it has disadvantages. For example, the iPhone 16 Pro compactness makes it really easy to hold and really easy to carry around. But it also brings with itself a smaller battery and worse battery life. While with the iPhone 16 Pro Max, you have a bigger body, a more cumbersome body, but you also have, of course, a bigger battery. These are trade-offs that you need to decide. Are you a power user? Are you someone that really kills your phone really fast? If so, going for the Pro Max model will give you more chance to have a better battery health experience. While with the iPhone 16 Pro, trust me, if you are used to killing a phone in less than one day, the 16 Pro might be not the phone for you. The battery life here is a little bit worse than on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. I would say it's around 30-35% worse than the 16 Pro Max. Again, look at the size difference between these two phones. This has a much smaller cell. And yeah, at the end of the day, you do notice it, and it takes a hit on the battery life. So if battery life is something really big for you, and it's probably the most important spec on a phone, then go for the iPhone 16 Pro Max. At least, I think that you won't be disappointed. To give you a different perspective of the difference in size between these two phones, here's both of them compared to my hands. As you can see, the 16 Pro Max is the size of my hand, while the iPhone 16 Pro is definitely smaller. So, if you don't like big phones, the 16 Pro Max is not for you. Because again, as you can see, the iPhone 16 Pro is smaller than my hand, which it makes it actually much bearable and a lot easier to use in one-handed mode. And if you compare it to everyday items like the AirPods Pro, the iPhone 16 Pro is so much smaller than the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Here, you can definitely notice the difference in size between these two phones, because it gives you a different perspective of the size of both devices when compared to different size items that most people recognize. Again, the AirPods Pro are much smaller than the 16 Pro Max, but almost the same size and width as the iPhone 16 Pro. If you put them side by side, you can definitely notice a difference and give you a scale with the AirPods Pro of the size of these two phones. If you own an Apple Watch Ultra, then here's the comparison between these two devices and the Ultra. And for the classic, the most recognizable pen, or maybe object out there, a big pen. Closer to the iPhone 16 Pro, it's the same size, but much smaller than the iPhone 16 Pro Max. If you want also the biggest display possible, the iPhone 16 Pro Max, it's the only choice. 6.9 inches, this is the biggest iPhone ever. And I gotta tell you, this display is gorgeous. This is the same panel found on the iPhone 16 Pro. They are literally the same phone, literally the same display. One is simply bigger than the other. But being bigger also brings you more screen real estate. So if you want the biggest display possible on an iPhone to watch movies, TV shows, on a plane, train, whatever, then buying an iPhone 16 Pro Max is your choice. Because this display is gorgeous, it's big enough. I think it's too big. And yeah, it will give you an amazing viewing experience. While the iPhone 16 Pro is more compact, but it also has an amazing OLED display. Again, same display, just smaller. Oh, and you want to know something funny? Because these two displays are literally the same, the iPhone 16 Pro being smaller gives you a different appearance for the bezel size. Seems smaller on the iPhone 16 Pro than on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. But you should go into the store, pick up both phones and decide, is the bigger display worth the bigger size? This is something very personal for everyone. So if you want a bigger display, a bigger battery, going for the iPhone 16 Pro Max is your choice. But I would say that for most people, maybe the 16 Pro is the more compact and the easiest to be used to and easiest to prefer. Because it's truly compact, very powerful. And I just gotta say, there's something about holding your phone and be able to use it one-handed that it's really important for me. And makes me wonder, should I buy the iPhone 16 Pro? Or at least keep this one? I'm not sure. And this is something that I've been battling out for a while now. Should I buy a smaller iPhone? Because there are some instances, especially this year with the iPhone 16 Pro Max, where I've been holding this phone and thinking, I think this is too big. I think this display is too big for me. I cannot use it one-handed, especially when I'm with my other hand busy and I try to use this phone with one hand and it's too big to reach all corners and then to write messages, to send something to someone while walking on the street, and it needed to be paying attention to other stuff. Using an iPhone Pro Max model, I think it's too big. While with the iPhone 16 Pro, it's really easy. You don't need to even take an effort. It should be even easier to text while you walk, to do anything else, or to check out your maps, whatever. A 16 Pro should be much easier. And so the 16 Pro Max, it's too cumbersome. If you have smaller hands, trust me, it's not the best choice. This phone is too big for most people. I have big hands, for my size at least, and I struggle a bit with this iPhone. Of course, you have the function of bringing down the whole display with this, so you just push down like that, it brings down the display. But I mean, it's not the same thing. And then when you are testing out, texting someone, whatever, sometimes I feel it's too big. And if I feel sometimes it's too big, there are lots of people out there that will feel it's too big every time. So be careful with that. Don't buy a Pro Max model without going to the store, picking it up and trying it out. This year, especially with the iPhone 16 Pro Max being bigger than last year's iPhone, I would say go to the store and try it out. It might be too big for you. And that's something that the iPhone 16 Pro does not suffer. This phone is super compact. This is my hand, this is the 16 Pro. Look at it. Which in turn makes it easier to use this iPhone with one hand. One-handed iPhone use is something that I've been missing for a while now. Although the downsides of a smaller display is that whenever you are watching videos, whenever you are watching TV shows, movies, whatever on your phone, it has a smaller form factor, so a smaller display, and the viewing experience is degraded. The quality, the same. But the size of the display matters a lot whenever you are watching something that is intended to be watched on a huge screen, a TV or a cinema. So yes, the 16 Pro size, it's perfect for day-to-day use, one-handed use, even to take photos and videos. It has an incredible camera. Social media runs completely fine here. I don't think you need a bigger display for that. But whenever you want to watch YouTube videos, TV shows, or even movies on your phone, you will suffer a bit. But because that's a very extreme use case, I would say that for most people, the 16 Pro is the perfect choice. Both of these phones have the same USB-C port. Both of these phones feature the camera button and the action button. Both of these phones have the same speaker system. Both of these phones have the same microphone system. So they are completely the same phone. The only difference is the size. And so which one do you choose? The Pro Max model, the 16 Pro? Well, it's quite easy to answer that question. Go into the store, try it out for yourself and decide. This is very personal, but I think that in 10 minutes, you make your choice. For me, I'm keeping my iPhone 16 Pro Max. I do really enjoy this bigger display and battery, and I take advantage of the bigger cell. And with that, I'm keeping my iPhone 16 Pro Max. I'm not changing it, but you have a slight doubt that this phone might be too big for you, go for the 16 Pro. If you have no access to these phones in person, go for the 16 Pro. You won't regret it. The battery life is good enough, the display is good enough, and yeah, the camera is the same as the iPhone 16 Pro Max this year. So it's all in terms of size. Don't be afraid. I would say that this year, it's the year of the iPhone 16 Pro. Thank you guys for watching. Drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel. Bye-bye.